Okay, I think we're running. Ladies and gentlemen of the Driftwood family, welcome to your project, your house. Instead of just sending you a bunch of drawings and a long, confusing email, I thought I'd make a quick video, kind of explain, a lot of the reasoning and the thinking behind some of the options and stuff that I came up with. Just convey a lot more information and kind of give you guys some insight and help explain things. And it's been a long time coming, so let's just dive right into it. So this is the project. After you sent this photo, I can totally understand why you want to deal with this. Like from my understanding, it sounds like this whole back area, it's more or less leaking, and there's a washroom in here that you don't really use, and it's kind of a waste of space, and it's just time to go. Like, it's all been put together a little bit piece by piece over the years, and it's time to move on. So let's dive right in here. So this is the existing layout. This is I put this together based on that video that you had sent a while back. So these dimensions won't necessarily be exact, but they're pretty darn close. I mean, they're probably within a foot or so of what's really going on. But that was enough to kind of get the layouts and everything that I needed to sort of push forward with a couple options. So we'll just quickly walk through these here. So the basement, that's it here. Not really doing anything down here. Obviously, one thing that did come up was this this rear entry to the basement. And I know you were saying, maybe we keep it, maybe we don't. You're kind of indifferent. I'll talk about that a little bit. So in all the schemes and options that I've put forward here, we can either keep it or we can get rid of it. It's kind of it doesn't really matter either way. I will say that a lot of people in at least in Toronto, as housing prices and stuff are going up, people are spending 10, 20 grand just to put a rear access into their basement anyway, so that they can convert their basement into a rental suite and create some income that way. So it's kind of an asset, to be honest. I know you said you don't really use it. So I mean, in all these options, we can sort of treat it a couple different ways. You can basically just get rid of it, and if you don't use it, you're going to live here for 10 years or something, and you say, you know what, we're never going to use it. Just get it out of here. No problem. Easy. The next option would be keeping it more or less as is and just kind of camouflaging it. You could hide it under some planters and things like that and just kind of make it disappear, but then it's always there for uncovering in the future if you want to convert this into a rental suite in the basement in the future, something like that. Or we could even fix it up, and I don't think that's the way you want to go, but just know that we can kind of treat that anyway. We can keep it, we can get rid of it. I've shown it as is for all these existing drawings and all the options moving forward, just because I think it is kind of an asset, especially when you go to sell the house, or if you want to keep it as a rental property when you move to your next house, something like that. So putting one in is expensive and sometimes a challenge. So on the other side looking in, I would say it's probably worth keeping, but you guys live there, so it's kind of up to you. The rest of the basement, I mean, we're really not touching that. No big deal. The main floor, so this is a big one. Again, this is sort of that same rear access at the ground floor. This is the problem, this sort of rear addition, which is leaking and you're not using it. So I'm under the assumption that we'll probably get rid of that, generally speaking. And then the other thing that came up was the kitchen and dining room and connecting those. So like maybe we take out this wall and this wall, and then you have one sort of big open plan space. I think that makes a lot of sense, and we'll definitely get into that. So moving ahead, the second floor, we're really not going to do much here. I mean, this is coming off. I'm just assuming that will be gone. And then on the third floor, way upstairs, same kind of thing, not really touching anything aside from that deck will be gone. Okay, so then when you look, so assuming that that whole addition comes off the back, this is what you're left with at the back of your house. Down here you have the basement access, kitchen window here, door into the kitchen there, window to living room there. This is that door off that second floor bedroom into that rear addition. Now there may be a window there that I missed. I don't think there's one there, but looking at that rear photo, there might be one there that I missed. You can correct me on that one way or the other. If there is one there, that's great, because we can certainly use it. If not, no big deal. Then we have the bathroom area over here, basically try and leave that alone, and then obviously the upstairs on the third floor. Yeah, so in terms of the interior, I've broken this down into 4 different options, 4 different ways to approach this. And I've kind of put a sort of a relative cost with each one, just so you can sort of see how they compare to one another. And it might be intuitive, but I don't want to put a hard dollar number to it, but then at least you'll know, like, oh, option 1 is cheaper than 2 and so forth. So you sort of know on a hierarchy where these kind of sit with each other. So so this is the first option. We're going to start at the cheapest. Very easy. You take that wall that was in here between the kitchen and the dining room, take that right out. There is some piping and some ductwork right there. Basically just frame that in. You could keep that closer to the wall. Maybe it only comes out to there, but this way it gives that door kind of a play, the door into the kitchen, kind of gives it something to nest into, so it's not flying out into the middle of the space. The nice things about this option, you just leave your kitchen as is. You don't even have to touch it. So that saves a lot of money right there. You're not touching the cabinetry or anything like that, no plumbing. But then you still get this nice, great big room at the back of your house. Really combines those 2 spaces, which is great. And then in terms of the mudroom, you could take down the 2nd and 3rd floors, and then you could just kind of fix up that ground floor, maybe put a new roof on it, get rid of the washroom, and then just turn it back into a big mudroom. You probably fix up this deck here a little bit, and then you're done. I mean, that's about as simple and straightforward as you can get. You get a nice change on the interior. You get to keep a mudroom space in the back, which I don't know if that's something that you necessarily need, but that's a pretty low cost option. Moving ahead to option number 2, a little bit more expensive. You have a very similar idea. Again, you take that wall out here. That's kind of the no-brainer. Like step 1, take that wall out. That's going to make a huge difference in your house and the way that you guys live in there. Kitchen, again, just leave it as is. Saves a lot of money. I like the idea of adding a peninsula in here. With that wall gone, it gives you a little bit of space to add something like that, where you can have some more countertop, a little bit of storage space. You can put some bar seating there too for breakfast, things like that. Again, you box in this kind of stuff. You still have lots of room for a big dining table. This is all one big space, which is beautiful. And then my thought was on the ground floor, you get rid of the 2nd and 3rd floor additions, but you could fix up this ground floor. You change that into a little a pantry. You could move your laundry up there because there's already plumbing for that washroom. So it's a little more intensive than 1, but then you get some nice benefit out of that too. The biggest thing would be moving this door, which is not really that's not a major problem actually. So you can move this door from here to here because you already have a window there, so you just have to cut out a little bit of brick. The nice thing that I like about this is that it changes the circulation through your house all to one spot. So you basically have one line where you can walk in the house, walk straight through, out the back, and you don't have to go through the kitchen, which is kind of nice. I sort of like the way that works, and we'll see more of that here as we move ahead. So that's option number 2. Again, I mean, it's not rocket science. This one's pretty straightforward. It's mostly interior work, but it'll still have a big impact on the house and the layout and the way that you guys use it. So option number 3, getting a little bit more intensive, but again, the nice thing about this, keep all your existing kitchen cabinetry, don't have to touch it. Adding a peninsula, again, I like that idea. Now this one assumes that we're just removing that rear addition. It's gone. So we take that out of there. That gives us a lot of space for a great big deck on the backyard. You can keep the door right where it is. Keep that window, no big deal. And that's kind of a nice option. I mean, it's not crazy expensive because you can leave the kitchen more or less the way it is. You can add a little bit of storage and seating here. You still get a nice big open space. And very little work on the exterior. So that's a pretty, I mean, you're getting a lot of value for your money on something like that. But in a perfect world, this, I mean, if you're going to live in your house for 10 or 15 years and you just want to make it livable for you guys, and budget's not an option, or not a concern, I should say, this is the way that I would approach it. I mean, I think this is sort of the optimal way to use your house. So it's definitely more expensive in that we're reworking this kitchen. I've shown the appliances moved. You can put the sink down here. You have a maybe these are full height sort of pantry cupboards. You move the fridge a little bit closer to the kitchen. You move the stove. You have the sink down here. You're creating a nice working area where you can stand in the middle and sort of do whatever you need. You still get the peninsula with lots of seating, which is great. And the nice thing about this is I've shown the door into that rear yard. Not only have we moved it, but we've made it bigger on this version, which I think makes a huge difference. So again, you have that circulation right through the side of your house, which is nice and easy. And the nice thing about this is you don't have to go through the kitchen to get outside. Basically, in all these other options, you're walking through the kitchen, you're walking through the kitchen, you're walking through the kitchen, especially in your existing. If we go back to here, you really can't get outside without going through your kitchen, right? So, I mean, if you're in here making dinner and, the kids are running around and running in and out, everyone's kind of going through that space. But then, if we go back to option 4, here we go. Now it's its own little zone. So, I mean, you can be in there cooking up a storm and there's not going to be people walking through. So it's a little bit less disruptive. The appliances are closer together. Someone can be cooking here. You can have someone sitting here chatting. You can have the kids sitting at the dining room table doing their homework. Everyone's within eyesight, and you can be talking to each other. And now you have such a stronger connection to your backyard that you'll actually, I think with something like this, you'd actually use your backyard a lot more. You'll find that because when you look at the way that things are now, you basically can't even see your backyard unless you're in that back rear addition. Like from the kitchen, you can see a little bit out here. And from the dining room, you can see a little bit out here, right? But you don't really have much of a view of your backyard actually from your main floor. So with something like this, there's a lot of benefit in that. Not only do you have this nice big open space where the whole family can be hanging out together, even if you're doing separate things, but now, as the kids are sitting here doing homework, they can look directly outside, or you can be sitting there eating, watching the kids outside. And then it's a lot more seamless to get in and out when you have, maybe these are a door and a window, something like that, or even if it's just I've shown them as big, like double sliding doors. Maybe it's just a single glass door with a big window to the side, something like that. But you get such a better connection between the indoor and outdoor, just being able to see it. I think you'll get a lot more use out of the backyard if you did something like this. And there's different ways to kind of combine those, but I do like the idea of moving the door that's here over to here. I think that just really improves the circulation inside. And for a couple reasons. Like, not only can you walk right through the house, which maybe that's not a big deal, but the circulation around the staircase is so simple and easy now. Like, if you got to run upstairs, you don't have to go around a peninsula and around the table, and then the kids are running around. It makes it easy just to circulate around that main floor space, and it's again, it's the more expensive option, but I think something like this is pretty nice. Like, this would really change the way that you guys live in the back half of your house. So now we'll get into the exterior options, and the way that I've sort of broken this down, and this was part of the trouble too. Like, there's so many different ways to tackle this. Go back to this first picture. I mean, it sounds like you had an idea that you don't really want this sort of monstrosity on the back of your house, but you weren't necessarily sure what to do. And there's a lot of ways to tackle it, and that's what I was running into. Is, there's 15 different ways to do this. So the way that I've broken it down is into the interior. You can kind of pick and choose any of those options and combine them with the exterior options. So depending on what your priorities are, you can say, it makes sense to take that wall out between the kitchen and the dining room. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. That's sort of step one. But then you can say, depending on your budget and whatnot, exactly what you want to spend your money on and what you want to improve, you can say, we do want to do the peninsula, or we do want to move that door. And you can kind of pick and choose one of these interior options and combine it with these exterior options. So before we move into these, there's sort of two ways to look at it. There's steel and there's wood. For a project like this, like if you want to connect up to the third floor with a set of stairs and staircases, you're probably looking at steel. You can do it in wood. When you're getting up to 3 floors, it's going to start to look a little clunky, bulky. It does certainly block out a little more light. However, steel structures they're a little more expensive, but you're going to get more light. They look lighter, basically, right? Like there's less structure. The structures are smaller. And it's also lower maintenance. Like that might be a factor. It's going to be more expensive to put in, just because it is steel, but then maybe you only have to paint it every 10 years, something like that. Whereas with wood, I mean, ideally you're staining it every year. Maybe you get away with every 2 years, but it's going to be some work. Otherwise, it starts to look rough, kind of like this one, and you might end up with the same situation on your hands. But so that's something to consider when you're looking at these exterior options. Do you picture it in steel or in wood? We can do it either way. It makes no difference. Either way is possible. It just depends really on cost and what's important to you. So let's get into the exciting stuff here. So this is sort of the base exterior. If you take your house and rip off that rear addition, I think this is more or less what you're left with. You got the door. We sort of went through this a little bit. So we got the door up at the top. Kind of a blank canvas in terms of this back wall. For all these options, I've left this rear basement as is. We can work around it or we can get rid of it, incorporate it, as I mentioned. Either way, no problem. So the opportunities here, there's a couple. This is your second floor washroom area, so I think it makes sense to kind of avoid that. If you start messing around with anything in that area, then you're into not into the kitchen, you're into the washroom, and those are expensive rooms to renovate. So it makes sense just to kind of leave that whole zone alone. This is roughly your second floor bedroom. And this one, like I said, maybe there's a window there already. I don't think so, but there could be. If there is, it's great, but no big deal. There's an opportunity here with this one in that there's this existing door. We could easily add more windows to the back of this room, or we could, potentially make that door even bigger so that it's like a sliding door, a Juliet balcony, something like that. Like even if there wasn't a deck there, you could imagine that, you have some French doors that slide open, and you have maybe a steel railing there, and you can look out and enjoy the backyard and make a big difference to that room inside. And then down on the main floor, there's the kitchen window. Try and leave that basically as open as possible, just so we can get the most amount of light in there that we totally can. This is the existing door. We can either keep that or potentially change that into a window in some of these scenarios that are coming up. This is the existing rear window, which again is super easy to change into a door. And there's a couple options where the door here won't really work, and it'll only work there. And that's pretty inexpensive. I mean, that's a pretty cheap way to really reconfigure things. But then because we're sort of combining, the kitchen and dining room areas, there's a great big blank wall there that we could add another door. We can add a window. So I think that's an opportunity just to, we can play with that wall. There's a lot of things we can do there to open that up, which goes into the dining room, which is then connected to the kitchen. So those are the things that I really wanted to capitalize on moving forward. So again, I've broken these down into a couple different options and kind of put a comparative price again, just to kind of give you an idea. Straightforward option A, you throw a deck on the back. It's as simple as it gets. You have really nothing else to do back here. You get first of all, your backyard's going to be, it's going to feel a lot bigger without this great big thing in the back. So with that gone, your backyard will feel bigger. You have a great big deck that flows out. This scheme gives you an opportunity. You can either keep that same door, or if you want to reconfigure the kitchen, you add a new door there, or you enlarge that window, and that's a pretty simple option. You're going to get a lot of benefit out of this. You lose, your deck up here and your deck on the second floor, but you basically get a whole backyard that you can now use, combined with that great big interior space. And this will be a nice connection between the inside and outside if you had a big window or door there. So that's a pretty cheap way to really change the layout of your house. This is where things get interesting because I know you talked about having some decks and some stairs that connect these floors. So this is option B, and I like this one. This one gives you a lot of, I think, value for your money. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck on an option like this. So you keep that same deck on the rear, but then obviously you have a deck on the second floor as well. So that second floor bedroom, you already have that door, which is perfect, but you could certainly make it bigger. You could add an extra window, and then this becomes a really nice space. I think your master's in the front of the house right now, but if you did something like this, I would consider moving it, your bedroom to the back. You put in a big French door in here, and then you have this massive outdoor space all to yourself, still connected down to the main floor through a set of stairs, so it's, you know, safe for fires and that kind of stuff. And then down on the main floor, you still have all these options to, you know, maybe put a door there, you put a big window there. There's 100 ways to tackle that. But then you have a nice covered space. This basically becomes a room, right? Like in the summer, you more or less added a room to your house. Plus, you get that nice strong connection to the backyard too. You can sit at your dining room table and be looking out into the backyard, and you throw your barbecue back on this deck and have a couple chairs and stuff out there. And again, that's assuming this is staying. We can kind of work around it. It's easy enough to get some stairs up and over there. That's no problem. So I like this option. This is one of my favorites actually, in terms of money and value and trade-offs. It's tackling a lot of the things that you guys brought up, without going too nuts and too overboard. But if you want to connect that third floor, we can take that same scheme and basically add a little balcony up to the third floor up here. Again, that's as soon as you get up to that third floor, I mean, obviously you're talking a little bit more money for structure, and it's a lot more stairs and supports, and then we're probably getting some structural engineers involved, that kind of thing. Probably leaning towards steel when you get to that height. I mean, we can definitely do it in wood. Something like steel would allow a lot more natural light in too, but either way, it's totally up to you guys. You do sacrifice a little bit of space on the second floor balcony just to get these stairs back up again to the third floor. So this balcony here, it's a little bit smaller, but I mean, it's still a pretty good size, and you still have the option to, you know, you can make that door bigger, you add an extra window, whatever you want to do. And same thing on the main floor, you can sort of play with this space however you want. On that back wall, there will be a couple posts and columns in here to deal with, but exactly where those go and how they land, I mean, we can reconfigure that. That's no problem. You still get to keep the basement access, but you can see it's getting a little busier. Like there's a lot going on here. You get a lot of posts now on the second floor, the main floor. So I mean, it's getting certainly more complicated when you get up to that third floor. This one is very similar to C. So option D is basically the same, except I've tightened everything up just to the back of the house, as you can see here. If you're looking to maximize the light coming into your house through the windows and whatnot, you know, maybe you don't want to have a great big deck outside. Maybe you just want to throw like one chair and a barbecue out there, something like that. This is a way that you can kind of maximize more of your backyard space. You still have a nice little, this becomes less of a room in here and more of just like a quick transition zone where you're inside and then you're outside. Whereas before, if you have a spot like this, like you kind of have three zones. You have, you know, your dining room, kitchen inside, and then you have your outside room, and then you kind of have your yard. So I'd consider that like three rooms in a row, whereas something like this, you have your inside, quick little transition zone, and then you're outside. So if you're planning on using the actual yard a lot, this might be a little bit better. But if you want to, you know, throw down a couple deck chairs and just sit around and enjoy the outside, maybe, you know, you have the covered space with this one with option C, and then you're out of the rain and things like that. But I just threw that in just to give you an idea. Like, it doesn't have to be super deep, or we could go deeper. This whole deck, you know, instead of being this deep, maybe it comes out even further. And that'll depend on the setback of your rear yard. There'll be a line somewhere back here where you can't really go past that. So that's something that if that's a way that you'd like to go, we could look into that. So that's just sort of a simplified version, a little bit tighter to the building, you get more light, more natural light all into those windows and doors. You want to simplify it a little bit more. This way, with option E, you still get a balcony upstairs on the third floor, but there's no stairs. So this is nice if you just want to come out and have a coffee in the morning, or sit and read the newspaper, whatever you want to do. But you're not concerned with, getting down to the main floor. That said, I mean, if there was a fire or something, if safety is a main concern, because I know you said you have, there's kids in the house, and there's maybe another family, some friends that live there too, and if there's people on the third floor and there's a fire, I mean, it's certainly better than nothing. Like you could sort of shimmy your way down from the third floor onto this balcony and work your way down. It may not be easy, but at least you're not jumping out of a third floor window or something and whatever, hurting yourself, right? So if safety is a main concern, like, this is still viable. It's certainly better than what you have existing. But we'll talk about that too, sort of like what's important, if it's outdoor space or if it's safety or balconies, whatever it is. So that's one thing to consider. You have a sort of a medium-sized balcony here on the second floor. Again, you can open up that door if you want. You have this window that you could put in. Main floor, the deck here is not looking as good because now it's kind of being impeded by these columns. So, I mean, you'd probably throw a barbecue down here and, maybe a chair or two, but it's certainly less of an outdoor room, and now it's more utilitarian, where you just want balconies here, balcony here, little deck here. You're not going crazy on the cost. And the thing with these two, I've shown all these as pretty basic in terms of how they look. So I've been shooting for function here, and we can kind of dress any of these up. So the important thing is you want to find one that suits the functions that you're looking for, whether you want connectivity between the third floor down to the main floor, or if you want balcony space, sort of figuring out what you want first, and then we can dress it up, make it look good after that. And we can make any of these look really nice. You can add some little planter boxes or something up here, so you have some stuff growing, and you could, same with this little roof, you could do some plants and stuff here, so that when you're looking at it from the kitchen out that window, you're just looking through a little garden. So I wouldn't worry too much about how they look necessarily at this point, because we can kind of dress them up. These are sort of the bare bones. Is it doing what you want it to do? And then we'll make it nice and sexy after that. So that's option E. Option F is, you basically, probably looking at safety as your main concern. You just want like a terrace at every floor and stairs to get out. Nothing too crazy. It's pretty. If something like this could be wood, could be steel. You have a little terrace up here on the third floor. You have a little terrace. This is kind of like a New York fire escape style. Like, you could come out there and sit and have a drink or something with a friend, but I mean, you're not going to have a party out on your balcony or anything like that. So this is mainly, you just want to be able to get out. Problem with this is it's pretty efficient in terms of the construction, but you're losing a lot of the benefit of your yard with this option, because you can come out, but you can throw a couple chairs on this deck, but really not much. And the connection between your inside and outside is not great. You have the door from the kitchen, you have a window coming out here, but I mean, they don't feel nearly as connected as an option where it's like this, where if this is a big window and you're sitting there, you're only just a couple steps from outside. Whereas this, I mean, it's not going to be nearly as inviting to go outside. So that's a consideration. And we're at the $3 signs, give or take. So a lot of these ones all sort of cost roughly-ish the same. It all depends on what you want to get out of it. So then the next option, G, is using that same sort of staircase from F, but we use it here in G on the far side of the house. And the reason I did this, it seems pretty similar, but I liked exploring this one because you already have this basement stair here. And now if you have a 3-story staircase above that, all your circulation vertically is in one spot. So it depends on how you use your house. Like, if in the summer you're down in the wood shop or whatever, using tools in the basement, and you got to run upstairs a lot, or the kids are running around, this is kind of nice, and then it keeps everything all sort of together. But the other benefits of this one are, you do have a terrace on the second floor and a small terrace on the third floor, which are very private. They're not really connected directly. Like, you have to go down to the end and then up some switchback stairs. So this kind of becomes a private little balcony. And again, maybe you open that door up again, or you have a window there. That lends itself really nicely to this scenario. You can imagine that bedroom in here. And if you had a nice big French door that just slid open, and then you had 4 feet of balcony space, it'd be beautiful. And the same thing up here. You have a small little space for that 3rd floor, but they're not super connected to each other, so they're kind of private. So it depends how you use your house, if that's appealing. And then you still have a nice, good-sized deck on the main floor with a strong connection to the inside. That one, I'm assuming, if you do something like this, I'm assuming you're probably going to want to either add a window or a larger door there, which means you're touching that 2nd floor bedroom, which is why that one's probably going to cost a bit more. As soon as you touch a bedroom or another room, I mean, you're probably fixing the ceilings and the drywall and the flooring, and then you're painting it, and then you're adding another window, and those things add up. So anytime you touch a new room, I mean, your costs are going to go up. But that's kind of a nice option. The downsides are you're blocking a little bit of light to that kitchen window, but again, imagine now that your kitchen and dining room are connected, and this back wall has an extra big window or an extra door. I mean, it's going to be brighter in there than it is now, for sure. So keep that in mind. And I think there's one more. Oh yeah, so this is, I threw this in. This is probably a stretch. This is on the, this is going to be on the more expensive side for sure. But it's an option, and it's not unrealistic. So in this one, you're basically adding an addition to the rear of your house. Could be, I mean, the width of it could be more than that, it could be less than that. I've kept this basement access and sort of used that as a place to stop. But I mean, you could go further. You could tighten it up, and it couldn't be as wide as it's shown. But then this gives you a nice deck or a balcony on that 2nd floor. And you certainly lose some deck on the main floor. You could make that bigger. I don't know if it's necessary then, but you could definitely make that bigger. You still have the staircase up to the 2nd. 3rd floor, there's no balcony. I mean, if there's a fire, you got to jump. Not the end of the world. But then in doing this, so imagine again that your kitchen and dining room are connected. Actually, I'm going to go back to this floor plan just quickly. So something like this. So imagine now that this deck was actually an addition. Imagine that's all interior. So now, if you take that wall out between the kitchen and the dining room, the room in the back of your house is something like this. Like, that's massive. And the benefit of this then is I would probably switch the dining room over to here. So then your kitchen and dining room are connected, still side by side. You still have to go through, maybe just take that door off, no big deal. But then this becomes, or could become, your living room. So that's an option, right? Like you're cooking here, you have, or you could, maybe you combine it. Maybe this is your dining room and this is kind of a small sitting room, living room kind of thing. But that's just one way to think about it. You don't necessarily have to keep your dining room where it is. You could move it up there. If this room down here gets bigger, that could be your living room. Switches your layout a bit, but it's definitely an option. But again, that will be certainly on the more expensive side because you're adding some interior space. But you still have some options on the second floor to add windows, things like that. But that's one way to approach it. So this was option B. This one I think is my favorite in terms of returns for your money, bang for your buck. This one, something like this on the outside, on the exterior, you're getting a lot of value. You remove that rear addition, you have a nice big deck in the backyard. You have a great big deck on the second floor, whether you move your master to that side or not. You can open up this window here, or open up that door, I should say, make it twice as big. This becomes a really nice space, and you can dress this up. Maybe you have some planters or whatever with some plants spreading on those railings. Really nice area in the summer. You could have some hanging plants here in the winter, in the summer. So when your dining room's table's inside there, you're sitting, you're looking out directly outside. You have some plants hanging down. This would be, I imagine you'd use your backyard a lot more if it looked like this. and that's just speculation, but I think it makes something like this makes a lot of sense. I think if you really want to invest in your house, I think something like this is probably the way to go. Again, there are some downfalls. You don't have a balcony up on this third floor. Um, this, I mean, I've shown it as is. You could just completely remove it. You could make that deck the full width of the house, which would be nice too. But then just the fact that you get this nice outdoor room right in here, which is covered from the rain, you can sit out there and hang out. Plus now your connection to the backyard is excellent, and you're just gonna be out there more. So I like that one. I just kind of quickly sketched over it to give an idea of what it might look like. It's not crazy expensive. It's kind of middle of the road, but you're getting a lot of value out of it. So that's why I was a big fan of this version. So final thoughts, just to kind of wrap this up. What's most important to you? These are the things that you kind of have to think about to answer these questions next. So when you rip this existing addition off, like what are you trying to get out of it? Do you want to use your backyard more? Do you want more outdoor space for gathering? Like, do you want to have a big picnic table outside where you can all sit and have dinner? Or do you want little private terraces? Do you want each little bedroom off the back to have its own little balcony where you can have a coffee in the morning and kind of hang out? The larger interior space, like I think this one's kind of a no-brainer. You connect those kitchen and dining room. That makes a lot of sense. It's pretty easy. That's probably near the top of the list. Budget, I mean, obviously that's important. I'll talk about that in a second. Safety, I know you mentioned, getting out. You have kids in the house. If there's a fire or something like that, do you want that third floor? Do you want stairs coming down from there? Do you want stairs from the second floor? How important is that to drive your decisions? The connection of the indoor and outdoor space, some of those options, I think when you open up that back wall by the dining room and you have that strong visual connection between the inside and the outside, I just think you'll use your backyard a lot more if you had something like that. And natural light, just trying to keep all the light possible going to the interior. So then once you sit down and kind of figure out, all right, what's important? What are we actually trying to accomplish by doing this? Then you can start to answer these. Which floor should have balconies? Maybe you only want them on the second floor or first floor. Which floor should have stair access? That's kind of the safety thing. Wood or steel? That'll come down to maintenance and cost pretty much. If you're only going to plan to live there for 10 years, maybe it makes sense to just do wood, and then you can clean it up right before you try and sell it. If you want to stay there for 20 years, I would do something like steel, where it's going to last forever and you hardly have to touch it, and it's going to keep lots of natural light, and it's going to look great. So and your budget, so this is a big one. I would say to pick a number ahead of time. Whatever it is, you want to spend 50 grand, you want to spend 100 grand, pick a number and then try and keep the project within about 90% of that. That'll give you a 10% contingency. So if you say, you know what, we have $100,000 that we want to spend, what can we get? And we'll assume that everything all in is going to cost 90, and then we have an extra 10 for, there's things always come up in construction. You take a wall down and there's things in there that you weren't expecting. So I would certainly recommend having a contingency, just to really deal with those issues as they come up. But I think it's important to really pick a number and stick to it. So have that discussion. So we're willing to spend this much at the most. Maybe we'll try and aim for 75% of that, and then keep whatever your number is. Make sure it includes that contingency. That'll save you for sure. And so the next steps as you move ahead, look through those, sit on them for a few days and absorb the ideas and really think about them. And then pick a couple and say, what do you like and what do you dislike? So we like a couple things from option C on the outside and option B, but then we also like something from the interior, option 3, and then we can kind of massage those together and combine them. Or you say, we hate something from option F, we can just scratch that, it never has to show up again. So sort of look through those options and see what you like and what you don't like and why. Like, what's the reasoning behind it? Do you like the balconies? Do you like the outdoor space? And then we can kind of hone in on those and focus on that. So And then if there is something that you do like and you sort of want to move ahead with, one thing you'll have to do is get a property survey if you don't have one already. That could be probably won't be too bad. Anywhere from could be $500 to maybe $1,000, something like that. And they'll come in and find all your property lines and things like that, and then we can use that for permit applications, because that'll be required by the city when you go in for a building permit, and then we can check all the setback distances and whatnot. So that's an important step if you want to move forward. And then approaching contractors with some developed drawings. I mean, you could even, if you know one of those options, you're like, you know what, we're going with option B, we love it. You could even take those drawings right now, and at least that gives them an idea. They probably won't be able to put an exact quote to it, but at least it gives them an idea. They have an idea of, we have to this many square feet of deck, and stairs, and engineering for the stairs, or if it's steel, whatever. At least it starts the conversation. It'll put you in a ballpark for a price, but then. If we go back and forth a couple times and really refine one of those options into something that is very detailed, then obviously they can put a more detailed price to that too. So, and then the building permit after that. So anyway, so that kind of wraps up, I think, everything that I wanted to touch on. So really it comes down to an interior option. And exactly what you want to do with these, and then combining that with an exterior option. And then we're sort of create a mashup of those two and get it a little more detailed. And then the next step would be to do a similar thing where you say, all right, we've sort of honed it in, but I'll do, maybe 3 options and tweak it a little bit with some variations each way, and then go from there. So anyway, I hope this video was a little bit useful, and I didn't want to just send a handful of 2D drawings that were confusing. I think these little renderings make a picture's worth 1,000 words sort of thing, and then the video will sort of explain a lot of my reasoning behind this stuff. So hopefully that was useful. Anyway, I think that's it for now. I've gone on way longer than I anticipated, so I'm going to end it there. Have fun looking at these, and I'll talk to you later.